Hello everyone, my name is Shane and today we are doing a tutorial on how to make a joystick controller for your character. So right now we have a scene set up with nothing but a cube as a floor and a cube as a player. Don't forget to put the rigid body on your player so he actually falls down to the ground and you can see the real mechanics. Now if I hit play, I'm going to show you guys how this works. So we have our character, and when we pull on the joystick, not only is the character going to go in that direction, but it's also going to rotate. So this would be very good for a top-down shooter game. If you're dealing with something FPS, this would also work, but you will need to drag your main camera into your player like this, and obviously reposition your camera so that when you actually play, you see the environment moving around with your character. I can talk about this more in another episode, but for now I'm just going to show you guys how to actually program the character controller. So I just want to say a disclaimer, I did not create this controller myself. I saw a tutorial a very long time ago. I forget who actually made the tutorial, but this is the only joystick I've been able to find that actually works amazing. And that also does the 3D rotation depending on where your character is looking. Now there's probably better and faster ways to make this, but this is the best one I have found, and I have yet to actually sit down and crack at it by myself. So if anybody knows the actual author who made this code, or if I stumble upon them again, I will definitely post it in the description and give them full credits. But let's get started. So the first thing is, you guys are going to have to get two images. So last episode, we actually made a jump button for our characters as well. Let me show you guys this really quickly in case you are interested. So last episode we had a circle character and we made a jump button so that when the player is in the air, they can't jump until they hit the ground. And now we obviously have our mobile input joystick, which is really awesome. Now in the last episode we downloaded this joystick pack. So all I did was I took the same sprites that were in here and I made two separate images. I made one which is going to be the background, and then this image is actually the joystick. So this background is really important. This joystick should be trapped inside of it, just like we kind of show here. So we have the parent image and then we have the child image. So this should be located in the middle, because in our script what is going to happen is this joystick is actually going to get the outside position of this button, and when we pull it, it's only going to go 0.5 times the position out, just like this, and then it will come back in. And you can obviously change this, so if you want it to go way wider, you can do that, or if you just want it to be a lot shorter, you could do that as well. But 0.5 was really good, and that's kind of what I stuck with. So that's how we are going to keep this. So make sure you have those two images. These can be any images you want, by the way, but like I said, I took the sprites down from the joystick pack that we downloaded. So let me open up this script. Now, this script is going to look very crazy with a lot of information. I just wrote a lot of notes down so you guys can actually read upon this and learn for it yourself. Now, let's go from the very top. The first thing you're going to need to do is this. You need to put using Unity Engine.event systems. So we're actually using built-in event systems to control the joystick. Now, beside mono behavior, we're also going to have to put the characteristics. So we're going to have to do the eye drag handler, the eye pointer up handler, as well as the eye pointer down handler. Now, after you type these in, you're going to get 3 errors, and it's because there's going to need to be 3 voids for each type of these handlers, but don't worry about it, we're going to get to there in a second. Now, this first object here is this public rect transform pad transform. Which this means is what I was just explaining about 2 minutes ago when I was showing you guys how this joystick is going to say trapped inside of the other one, so the player can't pull it all the way across the screen. So this is going to get the size of that, let's say, jail cell to keep the joystick in. After that, we are actually going to work on the player movement variables. So we have a public transform and we are going to call it player. So this is going to get the location of our player once we connect it to this public transform. Under that, we need a vector 3 called move, And under that, we're going to need a public float called move speed. This is actually what's going to move our character. Now under this, we have a public void on drag, pointer event data. Don't worry too much about what this is. This is some pre-built-in Unity stuff. You can obviously research it, but for me to actually go through everything on here is going to make this video really, really long. I just want you guys to be able to put this in your project and be able to understand the gist of it. So essentially what this script is going to do is it's going to move the joystick when it is dragged with a finger. So after you put in this public void, you need to do transform.position equals event data.position. And now under that, we need to actually stop that joystick from escaping. So this is where we're going to refer to this rect transform. So we're going to do transform.localPosition equals a vector2.clamp magnitude event data.position minus vector2 pad transform.position comma pad transform.rect.width multiplied by 0.5. So this 0.5 number is actually going to determine how far the person can drag the mobile joystick out of its prism. So if you set this to 0.8, it will drag farther. If you set this to 0.1, it's barely going to drag at all, but it's not actually going to affect the player movement speed. The player movement speed is going to stay the same. I put it at 0.5 and it's worked for almost all of my landscape mobile games very, very nicely. But again, you can alter that to whatever you want, so don't be scared to touch that. Now under this, we actually need to save the joystick direction so you're not just clicking it and it's going back and going back and going back to its neutral state. So the way we do this is we're going to do move, which is our vector3, equals a new vector3, transform.localPosition.x, comma, 0, comma, transform.position.y.normalized. So what this is doing is just getting the new x and y position, and it's going to normalize it into a new vector3 for us, and that is how the joystick is actually going to remember where it is sitting, so it displays it to the user. Now after this, we need to find out if the joystick is being touched or not. So we're going to do a void for public void on pointer up, pointer event data, and then followed by event data. And we need to do the transform.localPosition equals vector3.0. What this means is if the joystick is not being touched, we want to set the joystick back to its neutral state. And then under this we have if the direction is not set, so if the joystick is not touched and the direction is in no general area, we're going to also reset the joystick back to the middle. And we do that by saying move equals vector3.0, which will neutralize it to its object. Finally, we need to stop a coroutine, which we're actually going to start at the bottom here. All you guys have to know about this is a coroutine is going to run like an automatic loop for us. So we just have to turn off that loop to stop moving our player. Imagine it is like an engine for a car. So the coroutine is actually the engine exploding and making all the gas so we can actually move our player. So we need to stop moving our player if the character is not moving, or if the joystick hasn't been moved. Next, we're going to do a public void for on pointer down, pointer event data, and when the joystick is pressed, we want to move the character. So we are going to start our coroutine, and this string inside of here, move player, is actually referring to this enumerator right here, move player. And this is the whole component that actually moves our player. These just stop moving it depending on, what circumstance, and this starts moving it depending on what circumstance, and the circumstance is if the joystick is actually moving. I know this one's a big brain buster, guys. It's probably not going to make sense. You're going to have to read over it a few times, so please bear with me. Hopefully I'm explaining it well enough. Now finally, to end this script off, we need to actually make the engine to move our player. So we're going to do an IEnumerator move player, and we're going to say while true, move the character where the joystick moves. Now in order to do this, we're going to do player.translate, and then you're going to get that move vector 3, which is changed every time we move the joystick, and we're going to multiply it by our move speed, which we can set ourselves. And then we have to multiply that by time.delta time, because if we don't do this, it's going to move too fast every frame. So what time.delta time is it's going to average out the frame rate kind of to a second. So instead of moving your character 1 frame, 80 frames in a second, it's going to move your character to an averaged out time. I will do another video later on time.delta time. It's really good for timers and things of that nature. And then we got to comment this and do space.world. And space.world is just getting a legitimate coordinate inside of our 3D universe. Finally, we have our last chunk of code, and it's going to get the character to actually look in the direction we are moving. So what this code says is if move is not equal to vector 3.0, this means if the joystick is not 0, it's actually been moved to a new location, so someone's pulling on the joystick, then we want to do our player.rotation, so get the rotation of our player. That's going to equal quanterion.slurp. Quanterion is a way to represent rotations, and a slurp is like a constant variable over time. It's kind of like time.delta time, but it's a little bit different. It's better for like rotations and movement speeds and things like that. Again, that's something really advanced that I'll probably get to in another tutorial, but for the sake of keeping this short, I'm not going to go too much into it. Now, after you do that quanterion.slurp, we need to get the player rotation. We need to do quanterion.look rotation, and that's going to be to our move vector again, so it's going to look to wherever the joystick is being pushed. And then we are going to put 5, which is just going to be the speed of our rotation, and then again we're going to multiply that by time.delta time so it runs nice and smooth, and then we finish it off with yield return null. Once you have this code all finished up, we need to actually go back into our Unity. We're going to let the code make itself, and we're going to hit Control S to save so we don't lose any of our progress. Now what you guys actually have to do, I already went ahead and did it myself just so there was no issues. So you're going to need to take your joystick script and you're going to have to drag it on, not to the exterior picture of your joystick, but to the actual joystick image itself. It has to be on this joystick or else it's not going to work. Now inside your script, you're going to have 3 things you're going to have to enter variables for. One is going to be the speed. Okay, it's going to be set to 0, so if you turn it on and it's not moving, make sure that you set this number before you start your game. Next, you're going to need the transform of the player to actually move it. So you just take your player object and you place them into there. And last but not least, you need that pad transform, which is actually going to be this main object here. That's going to kind of trap the joystick. So all you're going to do is take this image and drag it into here. Then when you start your game, there you go. You should have your player moving and rotating. And of course, like I said, you can change the speed and make your character a lot faster. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. Like always, if you guys have any questions, please put them down in the comments. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.